The morning air smells like bread and salt. In a small house near the Forum, a woman wraps a gold bracelet shaped like a snake around her wrist. She does not know this is the last ordinary morning of her life. Within 24 hours, her city will vanish under stone and ash, and her body will be found almost 2,000 years later, frozen in the exact position of her final breath. This is the story of Pompeii, a thriving Roman city on the Bay of Naples, and the mountain that destroyed it without warning. By the year 79 AD, Pompeii held around 11,000 people. It was not a small, forgotten town. It had paved streets, public baths, a large theater, and busy shops selling wine, bread, and fish sauce. Wealthy families decorated their homes with painted walls and mosaic floors. Enslaved people worked in kitchens and fields nearby. Merchants traded goods from across the empire. Life moved at a normal, human rhythm: arguments, laughter, work, love. Above the city stood Mount Vesuvius. Today we know it as one of the most dangerous volcanoes on Earth. But the people of Pompeii did not think of it that way. Roman writers rarely described Vesuvius as active. Its slopes were covered in vineyards. Farmers grew grapes on rich volcanic soil, never realizing that the same mountain giving them wine would soon take everything from them. There had been warning signs. 17 years earlier, in 62 AD, a powerful earthquake damaged large parts of Pompeii and the nearby city of Herculaneum. Some buildings were still under repair when the eruption came. Smaller tremors continued in the years after, but earthquakes were common in the region. People rebuilt their homes and continued their lives. No one connected the shaking ground to the sleeping volcano above them. That changed on an afternoon in October of 79 AD, a date historians now consider more likely than the traditional August date, based on evidence like autumn fruit found at the site and warm clothing on victims. Around 1 o'clock in the afternoon, Vesuvius exploded. The blast sent a column of ash, pumice, and gas nearly 20 miles into the sky. A young writer named Pliny the Younger watched from across the bay and later described the cloud in a letter, comparing its shape to an umbrella pine tree, a tall trunk that spread out into a wide, flat top. His account remains one of the only eyewitness descriptions of a volcanic eruption from the ancient world, which is why volcanologists still call this type of event a Plinian eruption in his honor. At first, the danger in Pompeii was not lava. It was the sky itself. Small stones called pumice began falling on the city, light and full of trapped air, almost like grey hail. Then came heavier rock. Roofs cracked under the weight. The air filled with sulfur, thick enough to burn the throat and sting the eyes. Daylight disappeared behind the falling debris. People who had been shopping, cooking, or teaching children just hours earlier now stood in the street, watching their world darken. Some people made a decision immediately: they ran. Families gathered what they could carry: coins, jewelry, small statues of household gods. They pressed cloth over their faces and moved toward the city gates, hoping to reach the coast and escape by boat. Archaeological evidence shows many people from Pompeii did survive this way, especially those who left in the eruption's early hours, when the danger still seemed survivable. But not everyone left. Some stayed to protect their homes and belongings. Others waited, believing the worst had already happened, unaware that the eruption was only beginning. If you find stories like this compelling, the small, human decisions inside a massive historical event, there will be more moments like it as this story continues. For nearly 18 hours, pumice and ash rained down without stopping. In Pompeii, the layer grew several feet deep. Streets disappeared. Roofs collapsed under the accumulating weight, trapping people inside buildings they had thought were safe. This slow, grinding phase gave many the chance to escape, but it also gave a false sense that the worst was over. It was not. In the early hours of the next morning, the volcano changed its behavior in a way far more lethal than falling stone. The eruption column, no longer able to sustain its own height, began to collapse. When that happened, it sent fast-moving clouds of superheated gas, ash, and rock racing down the mountain slopes. Scientists call these pyroclastic flows or, in fast, ground-hugging form, pyroclastic surges. They can move at speeds over 100 miles per hour, with temperatures hot enough to kill instantly. Herculaneum, closer to the volcano, was struck first. Then, in the hours that followed, several of these surges reached Pompeii. This is where the evidence becomes hardest to look at, and most important to understand honestly. Archaeologists studying the site found something that changed how we picture the final hours of Pompeii. Many victims were not found buried gradually under falling ash, as once assumed. Instead, forensic analysis of bones and the famous body cast suggests that a powerful, searing blast of heat, potentially reaching several hundred degrees, killed many people within seconds. Studies of skeletal remains and muscle contraction patterns, published by researchers examining Pompeii's victims, support the idea that this heat was intense enough to cause instant death, not slow suffocation as earlier historians once believed. This is a striking reversal. For generations, people imagined Pompeii's victims slowly buried alive, struggling for breath. The scientific evidence tells a different, and in some ways more merciful, story. For many, death came almost instantly, in the space between one breath and the next. But instant is not the same as painless for everyone, and not everyone died the same way. Evidence shows some victims survived the first surges, only to be killed by later ones. Families were found together, parents curled around children, as if trying, in the final second, to offer protection that no human body could provide against something so powerful. This is the detail that makes Pompeii different from almost any other ancient disaster. It is not simply a ruin. It is a moment, preserved. Here is how that preservation actually happened, because the process itself is remarkable. As ash and volcanic material buried the city, it hardened around anything it covered, including human bodies. Over centuries, the soft tissue decayed, leaving hollow spaces inside the solidified ash in the exact shape of the person at the moment of death. In the 1860s, an Italian archaeologist named Giuseppe Fiorelli developed a method to capture this. His teams carefully injected liquid plaster into the hollow spaces before excavating around them. When the plaster hardened and the surrounding ash was removed, the result was a cast, not of a skeleton, but of a human shape, capturing posture, clothing folds, even facial expressions in some cases. This technique transformed Pompeii from a historical curiosity into something closer to a message across time. Visitors were no longer looking at ruins. They were looking at people, a dog straining against its chain, a group of bodies huddled together, a figure with hands raised toward their face. Modern archaeologists have refined Fiorelli's method using resin and CT scanning, allowing researchers to study bone structure inside the casts without destroying them. This has revealed new details, evidence of diet, health, even old injuries, adding depth to lives that were, for centuries, known only through their final moment. Here's something worth sitting with as this story continues. Nearly 2,000 years later, we still keep learning new things about people who died in a single afternoon. For centuries after the eruption, Pompeii essentially disappeared from memory. The layer of ash was so complete that the city's exact location was eventually forgotten by later generations. Some structures were even reused by treasure hunters over the following centuries, but organized excavation did not truly begin until the 1700s. When workers rediscovered the site, first at nearby Herculaneum in 1738 and then at Pompeii itself starting in 1748, what they uncovered stunned Europe. buildings stood largely intact. Wall paintings retained their color. Bread, carbonized but recognizable, sat in an oven exactly where a baker had left it. Graffiti, political slogans, jokes, even declarations of love, remained scratched into plaster walls, giving historians something rare: the actual, informal voices of ordinary Roman people, not just emperors and senators. This is part of why Pompeii matters so much to historians. Most surviving Roman history comes from the writings of elite men, politicians, generals, philosophers. Pompeii preserved something different: the daily life of shopkeepers, enslaved workers, freed slaves who became successful merchants, and women running businesses. It offered a version of Roman society that no scroll or manuscript alone could provide. But this discovery came with a cost that took centuries to fully address. Early excavations were often careless. Some artifacts were removed and sold. Some structures were damaged by inexperienced digging. Only in more recent decades has archaeology at Pompeii shifted firmly toward careful preservation, with much of the ancient city still deliberately left unexcavated, protected underground for future generations with better tools and techniques than we have today. That decision itself raises a quiet, ongoing question: how much of the past should we uncover now, and how much should we leave for those who come after us? Today, Mount Vesuvius still stands above the Bay of Naples. It is not extinct. Geologists classify it as an active volcano, currently in a resting phase between eruptions. Around 3 million people now live in the surrounding region, including the city of Naples itself, making it one of the most densely populated volcanic danger zones on Earth. Scientists monitor it closely, tracking gas emissions and ground movement, searching for the same kind of warning signs that the people of Pompeii did not know how to read. That is, perhaps, the deepest thread running through this entire story. Pompeii was not destroyed because its people were careless or unaware in some simple sense. They lived, like most people across history, trusting that tomorrow would resemble today. The mountain that fed their vineyards and shaped their horizon had no history of violence within living memory. There was no reason, by everything they understood, to expect the sky to turn black at midday. The bracelet on that woman's wrist, the bread in the oven, the dog on its chain, the family huddled together in a final, useless attempt at shelter, these are not just objects and casts. They are the last physical sentence of thousands of ordinary lives, cut off mid-thought. Pompeii endures not because it was a great empire or a legendary battle, but because it was ordinary, until it wasn't. It reminds us that history is not only made of kings and wars. Sometimes it is made of a single afternoon, an ordinary sky, and a mountain that had been quiet for so long that no one thought to be afraid of it. If this kind of story, human, historical, and true, is the kind of history you want to keep exploring, there is always more to discover, and more language to grow along with it.